DeepSeek is completely appending the AI industry in real time right before our eyes. The US tech market took a massive hit, erasing trillions of dollars in value in just one day. This incredible model, created by a small Chinese company as a side project on a shoestring budget, has completely annihilated all of our assumptions on what it takes to build state-of-the-art artificial intelligence. And the reactions from the AI industry range from "this is incredible because it's open source" to "America just fell behind China" to "the CCP is lying about how many GPUs they have and trained with." Let me break it all down for you. So the first thing I want to show you is a post by Andrej Karpathy from December, just about a month ago. If you're not familiar with Andrej Karpathy, he is one of the leading minds in AI. He is a co-founder of OpenAI. He worked at Tesla on their full self-driving and just generally understands AI better than most people. So this is his tweet. And remember, this is about DeepSeek v3, which at the time came out but didn't really garner that much attention. This was a more traditional model, not a thinking model, but Andrej Karpathy actually predicted how important this model was, and nobody really gave it the gravity that this prediction really warranted. DeepSeek, a Chinese AI company, making it look easy today with an open weights release of a frontier-grade LLM trained on a joke of a budget, 2048 GPUs in 2 months, $6 million. So he saw it at the time, but even I didn't really realize what this meant, and many others didn't either. For reference, this level of capability is supposed to require clusters of closer to 16,000 GPUs. The ones being brought up today are more around 100,000 GPUs. For example, Llama 3 405B used 30 million GPU hours, while DeepSeek v3 looks to be stronger at only 2.8 million GPU hours, 11 times less compute. So even a month ago, DeepSeek was making more with less. If the model also passes vibe checks, basically the arena rankings, human evaluations, it will be a highly impressive display of research and engineering under resource constraints. Now here's the key, and I'm going to touch on this point multiple times through this video. Does this mean you don't need large GPU clusters for frontier LLMs? No. But you have to ensure that you're not wasteful with what you have. And this looks like a nice demonstration that there's still a lot to get through with both data and algorithms. Very nice. Okay, so remember, that was a month ago. And now just a few minutes ago, as of recording this video, he actually made a follow-up post to that post. Let me show you. Here's the key. I will say that deep learning has a legendary, ravenous appetite for compute like no other algorithm that has ever been developed in AI. Deep learning. This is the technique that R1 used to get so good, and it did not have human feedback. That's the key. So they removed the biggest bottleneck in really any system, but specifically deep learning, which is the human feedback element. Now, with that removed, compute can go infinite. You can use unlimited compute to do deep learning. It's essentially self-play, kind of how AlphaGo was able to become the best Go player in the world without actually having any human examples of what worked. You have a really strong, well-defined reward mechanism that teaches the model a good response and a bad response. You may not always be utilizing it fully, but I would never bet against compute as the upper bound for achievable intelligence in the long run. So the fact that the US tech stocks have taken such a big hit today really shows that financial analysts and investors maybe aren't truly understanding what's happening here. And so he goes on to explain in detail why reinforcement learning, deep learning, is so powerful and how it really creates unlimited data for these models to train on. As long as you have that reward function and it's well defined, then these models will create a ton of data, and all of that data requires compute, and then to train the model back again requires compute. And so let's talk about the stock market now, because as you see, the market has erased trillions of dollars of value in a single day because of DeepSeek, really, because of this one open source model created by this tiny Chinese company. But again, I personally do not agree with the assessment that this devalues GPUs, that this devalues the cutting edge US tech sector. It just doesn't. And it has to do with Javons Paradox. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But for now, let me show you a report from JP Morgan on DeepSeek. 95% of the questions we received were about the Chinese AI company DeepSeek, particularly regarding how they managed to develop state-of-the-art models on a modest budget, raising questions about the billions being poured into cutting-edge AI capex, as reflected in NVIDIA, -3%. Today, it's down like 15% in actual trading hours, and VRT down 5%. We believe these concerns are overblown and would like to share why. DeepSeek is a 2-year-old AI research and development venture startup based in China, fully funded and operated by High Flyer, a leading Chinese quant fund. They go on to briefly describe a little bit of history of the model releases by DeepSeek, but I want to get to the important part. What has drawn the most attention, however, are DeepSeek's research papers and the efficiency of its models. It is unclear to what extent DeepSeek is utilizing High Flyer's approximately 50,000 Hopper GPUs. So they said they're using a lot less, but according to Goldman, they have 50,000. A cluster comparable in size to the one OpenAI is rumored to be using for GPT-5 training. What is evident, though, is that they are dramatically reducing costs, which is great for everybody because they open sourced it. Now, here's the key point. This does not signify the end of scaling, the end of needing more computing power, or that the most capital-intensive players won't win. Remember, Mark Zuckerberg announced a sharp increase in AI capex yesterday. Instead, it suggests that competitors across the Pacific have been forced to pursue efficiency due to export restrictions. Now, that I believe completely. Constraint is the mother of innovation, and DeepSeek had to do more with less, unless you believe that they're actually using many more GPUs than they're leading on. But I personally don't, because they released such a detailed research paper really showing exactly how they created the model, and there are many companies right now reproducing the results. And personally, I'm on the vibe that Gary Tan, president of Y Combinator, is on. Have to admit, I just bought the NVIDIA dip. Not investment advice, but I personally agree with this. Now, here's the last point I want to make on the AI industry from an economic perspective. This is Jonathan Ross, the CEO and founder of Grok, G-R-O-Q. Now, quick disclosure, I am a very small investor in them, but I really do believe what he's saying. Let me read this. So the original post is, the market is deeply seeking an answer to DeepSeek. They are not finding those answers in the semiconductor stocks. All right, so Jonathan Ross replied, is that the sound of the market sloshing from pre-training to test time compute? Yes, that is that sound. Now, if pre-training a state-of-the-art model now costs just $5 million, the real leverage is post-training during inference. We can scale that up seemingly indefinitely. There may be a limit, but we certainly haven't seen that limit yet. Let me just break down what that means. During inference, which just means when you prompt the model and it's thinking about the result and it's preparing the response to that, we now have thinking models, which are like O1, O3 from OpenAI, and now R1 from DeepSeek. And so these thinking models, during that time where it's coming up with the response to your prompt, it's using a ton of tokens and it's reflecting on its response. It's trying a bunch of different responses. It is truly thinking about the response. And so all of that thinking uses a lot of tokens. All of those tokens require a lot of compute. So just because everything got cheaper doesn't mean we're going to use less of it. We're going to use more. Many use cases that were not ROI positive previously now became ROI positive. Javons Paradox. So what is Javons Paradox? Well, intuition might tell you that when something becomes cheaper and more efficient, the market for it is going to shrink because everything is less expensive. So of course, people don't spend as much, but it's actually the opposite. Let's think about energy. As a unit of energy becomes less expensive, the amount of use cases it can apply to profitably increases. So the total market and the total spend greatly increases, even though the per unit price decreases. Now, there are a number of examples throughout history of Javons Paradox, the steam engine being one, energy and gas prices being another, and now we're going through another with artificial intelligence. Now, although DeepSeek made the cost of pre-training much less expensive, and it's even much more efficient during inference time, that doesn't mean the total market for artificial intelligence compute is going to decrease. In fact, quite the opposite. It is going to allow us to accelerate so much more quickly towards AGI and ASI, artificial superintelligence, and thus the spend is going to increase greatly. So anybody who is shorting companies like Nvidia and other major tech companies, you probably have a pretty painful future ahead of you. Not investment advice. So that's Javons Paradox. So let's think about this in a positive way now. There have been a number of leaders in the AI space who are really thinking this is a very positive thing. And again, that is something I agree with. Now, here's Dr. Jim Fan, leading AI researcher at NVIDIA. An obvious "we are so back" moment in the AI circle somehow turned into "it's so over" in the mainstream. Unbelievable short-sightedness. The power of O1 in the palm of every coder's hand to study, explore, and iterate upon. Ideas compound. The rate of compounding accelerates with open source. The pie just got much bigger, faster. Javons Paradox. We as one humanity are marching towards universal AGI sooner. Now, obviously there is competition between China and America, so that might be the one line that I don't necessarily agree with. Yes, sooner, you read that right. Zero-sum game is for losers. Now, I hope he's right, but I don't think China is thinking that way. They are thinking it is a zero-sum game. Whoever reaches AGI first reaches ASI first, artificial superintelligence, because of the intelligence explosion, which we've talked about on this channel from the paper Situational Awareness. And Grok, who I just spoke about, just released their own version of DeepSeek hosted by them, a US company, the 70 billion distilled version of Llama, which is insanely fast. I tested it out. I was getting 250 tokens per second. So imagine all of that thinking time can be done in an instant, and you can start giving these models harder and harder problems that might take minutes, hours, days to actually go through the thinking process. Now it might just take seconds. Perplexity, one of my favorite AI tools. I use it all day, every day, just included DeepSeek R1 in their service. Here's Arvind, the CEO of Perplexity, the world's most powerful reasoning model. DeepSeek R1 with reasoning traces is now on Perplexity for supporting your daily deep web search. So already we are benefiting from the open source DeepSeek R1. And here's another positive take on it. Bill Gurley, famed venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, has this to say: "It's a better world if the most disruptive LLM model is foreign and open source versus domestic and proprietary." I wonder who he's talking about. Better for safety, security, free speech, innovation, startups, cost performance, protection from sovereignty, and global prosperity. So a lot of people are saying China just jumped ahead, they just ate our lunch, but they open sourced it. Everybody wins. That is why I love open source. Now, speaking of geopolitics, let me show you a few takes on that. Here's David Sachs, the AI and crypto czar for the United States. Here's what he has to say. DeepSeek R1 shows that the AI race will be very competitive and that President Trump was right to rescind the Biden executive order. He's referring to the executive order that Biden put in place right at the end of his presidency, putting in place regulation on how we develop artificial intelligence. So, which hamstrung American AI companies without asking whether China would do the same? Obviously not. I'm confident in the US, but we can't be complacent. If that is the main takeaway that we get from this, that we need to double down on how quickly we accelerate AI research and development, I'm all for it. Aaron Levy, CEO of Box, has this to say: "The reason you don't want overly aggressive AI regulation right now is the DeepSeek problem. One day there will be a breakthrough somewhere else, and having your arms tied behind your back trying to accelerate past it will destroy your chances of doing so." That is kind of what's happening in the EU right now. They are basically watching from the sidelines when they could be participating in this incredible world-changing technology. And now, here's kind of a crazy take, and it completely got destroyed on Twitter. So this is Stephen Heidel, who works on the API at OpenAI. "Americans sure love giving their data away to the CCP in exchange for free stuff. Immediately, community note, DeepSeek can be run locally without an internet connection, unlike OpenAI's models." So he really tried to jab at DeepSeek, but immediately was corrected. It's open source. You don't need to use DeepSeek's hosted version. And just to let you know, I'm not going to be using DeepSeek's hosted version. I'm not going to be downloading it on my phone. It is just too much of a privacy and security risk giving the CCP all of my data. I feel the same way about TikTok. But Grok is hosting it, and I'm sure many other inference companies are going to be hosting it very soon. So I've talked about Javons Paradox quite a bit in my previous video and this video already. Now let me give you a perfect example and a recent example. This is Emad, who is the founder of Stability AI. They created incredible open source text to image generation models. So Javons Paradox is real. After we released Stable Diffusion as an open source, smaller, faster, better version of the closed image models out there, it completely used up all GPU capacity on clouds. That is what happens when tech gets more efficient. It gets used more. You couldn't get NVIDIA chips for inference. Market for thinking AI way larger. Completely agree. And this was a quote of Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, saying essentially the same thing. Javons Paradox strikes again. All right, so now let me talk a little bit about how the actual AI industry is reacting to it, or some predictions of what will happen. So Suhail, a well-known founder in Silicon Valley, says whether or not profitable, all AI inference prices shall go down in a week. Just watch, all margins eviscerated. You can't let them have any distribution advantage due to price. Scorched earth policy leads to the app layer winning ultimately. And that's the key, the app layer. The cost of intelligence is truly going to zero. That is not just coming from the open source community. Sam Altman said the same thing. The unit price of intelligence is going to go down significantly. Dave Friedman says, seems like bad news for NVIDIA. No, that's the wrong way to think about it. Suhail replies, gonna be great for them. Yes, we're going to be using so much more compute, even if the cost goes down, and especially because the cost goes down. But not everybody believes DeepSeek achieved what they did. Now, I don't believe this, but I want to show you a few takes, including one from Elon Musk, where they're basically saying, no, DeepSeek is lying. But the first conspiracy I want to show you actually might make sense. I don't know if it's true or not, but it kind of would make sense. Now, High Flyer, the Chinese company that owns DeepSeek, is a hedge fund, meaning they do investments. And so Chris Camillo says, likelihood DeepSeek's $7 billion hedge fund parent is shorting NVIDIA and considered this into their decision to open source their model while emphasizing its $5 million training cost. Essentially, they open sourced this incredibly efficient model, and they thought once the market sees this, NVIDIA's stock price is going to go down, so I'm going to short it. And if they did that, maybe one of the best trades of all time? Who knows? But again, that is making the wrong assumption that this is bad for NVIDIA, because it isn't. It's good. Now, Nikita Bear on the conspiracy side, and this isn't really a conspiracy. I kind of believe it, although not to this degree. Reminder, US tech companies want your data so they can get rich. Nation states, CCP, want your data to kill you. Now, a close friend of the channel, Chubby, posted this on X. And quick reminder, he writes for the Forward Future newsletter. He does incredibly deep dives into different AI topics. So if you want to stay up to date on the latest AI topics, definitely go to Forward Future AI to find Chubby's writings. It's really incredible. So he posted this, billionaire and scale AI CEO Alexander Wang. DeepSeek has about 50,000 NVIDIA H100s that they can't talk about because of the US export controls that are in place. I talked about that in the last video. But here's the thing, let's scroll down a little bit. Elon Musk replied saying, obviously. So he believes that they are not telling the truth and they actually used many more GPUs than they said. Now, Elon Musk is known for taking a pretty negative view on anything that he deems competition, but it might be true, I don't know. Here's the thing, we're gonna know soon enough. It's all open source, the recipe is open, and it is being replicated right now. Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, posted about DeepSeek. Roy Abrams said, Mark, you take the claims that this was done on a shoestring at face value, and then Elon Musk once again, LMAO, no. So Elon Musk does not believe it for a second. All right, last, I want to show you the memes, because the meme game on this topic have been incredible. So here's Growing Daniel. Finance guys are like, I effing knew you nerds were full of it about needing that much money. And that is so funny. Here's another one. Remember, just last week, OpenAI released Operator. By the way, it's incredible. And the agentic future is very promising. But this is funny. So Sam Altman, fun watching people react to Operator, reminds me of the ChatGPT launch. Zephylum says, WTF is Operator, DeepSeek, D's nuts, bro. Got him! Here's another great one from Cheddarflow. They fell for DeepSeek, good, buy 20 million more of calls. And that's Nancy Pelosi, who has been known to absolutely outperform the market being a politician. And as I said, the markets have been deeply in the red today. So here is Autism Capital. They call it DeepSeek because everyone will be deeply seeking McDonald's employment. And every time crypto goes down, and that's what you're seeing here, that's the meme. Got to get a job at McDonald's again. And the last meme I want to share, because I actually agree with this. This isn't necessarily as funny as it is true. Adam D'Angelo, board member of OpenAI, shared this. So on the left, AGI will drive GPU demand. That is the kind of simpleton take on it. Then in the middle, we have DeepSeek efficiency will reduce GPU demand. A bunch of analysts real angry about that. Then the Jedi on the right, the smart ones, cheaper AGI will drive even more GPU demand. Completely agree. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.